comment? Okay, so we're going to do volunteer interviews. Can you tell me who's here?
Let's see, Faye Harris is first on our list.
Okay, Faye, are you here?
Yes.
Hi, Faye. So, welcome to the county board meeting. So
Hello.
we just ask you to just tell a little bit about yourself, and we've read your resume, and we'll take a vote later in the meeting and let you know how it goes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, my name is Faye Harris. I've been in Rochester since 2007. Before that, I was in the Chicago area. I've been working for Mayo all this time. I work as a supervisor / senior research technologist. I have a bachelor's degree in clinical lab science, like a medical technologist, and a master's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology from the Mayo Clinic Graduate School. I do cancer research at work. And then the last 5 years, I've been on the Rochester Ethical Practices Board, and I've really enjoyed that that role, and I've learned a lot, and I find it really interesting. In April, my term will be coming up for expiration. I'm not eligible to apply for another term, so I wanted to find another board that seemed interesting.
well, that's great.
So I thought it was really interesting and take advantage a bit of my scientific background. It's not an area of science that I have any particular knowledge of, but I'm happy to learn and look forward to learning more.
Great. I'm sure you'd be a great asset. Anybody have questions?
Are you done with your schooling now, Faye, after it's an impressive resume? Thank you very much for sharing. This started when you were
Thank you.
2 years old or something.
Well, Faye, this is Commissioner Podolsky. There must be a story behind your email address.
Distillment?
Not really.
That's embarrassing.
But it's
That's great.
got like a vaguely scientific feel to it, and actually there's the Kenneth Branagh Hamlet. There's a quote where he talks about the poison that was poured into his ear as a distillment, and I don't know, just the way he said it appealed to me.
Cool.
Well, thank you, Faye. We'll get back to you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we'll go to Aaron Eberhardt. Did I pronounce that right, Aaron?
That's Eberhardt, but close
Eberhardt,
enough.
that's fine. Thank you. Can you tell a little bit about yourself, Aaron?
Yeah, so I lived here since 2005. My dad, we moved here in 2005. My dad bought the old Minuteman Press down on 7th Street. My mom does at-home daycare here in Rochester, and this is where I grew up. I'm a 2015 graduate of Rochester Century. I went to Hoover and Kellogg here as well. I went to Mankato for marketing, and now I'm back here in the area. I've lived here for the only years I haven't lived here since 2005 were 15 through 18 when I was over at college. But besides that, I've been back here, and now I work for Congressman Hagedorn's office in the southeast part of the district.
Great. Any questions for Aaron?
No.
Terrific.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron. We'll get back to you after this meeting.
Awesome. Thank you.
You bet. All right, Tony Joseph. Oh, I think you're on mute, Tony.
I got muted talking to Greg. Sorry about that. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tony Joseph. I have lived in Olmsted County since 2004. I have worked for Knutson for the last 6 years. Prior to that, I was a commercial painting contractor. Mayo Clinic was our largest account. To this day, I am in project development, so I work on developing projects for our Rochester and Mankato markets. I'm also a teacher at RCTC. I've been there 12 years, served on the board at RCTC Foundation. I'm the past president. I am interested in this position because talking to a few people, I really would like to, because my son is now in boot camp. I'm an empty nester, so I'm looking for another portion of my life to actually make a difference in our community, because I really enjoy living in Rochester, and I recently moved back from Byron to Rochester.
Okay. Any questions for Tony? Well, thanks for your interest, Tony. We'll get back to you soon.
All right, thank you.
You bet. Okay, that concludes the volunteer interviews, and we'll call the meeting in order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, now on to our consent agenda. First is to approve the February 1st County Board minutes. Approve maintenance agreements between Olmsted County and the City of Stewartville and the City of Chatfield. Approve payment of 2021 property tax fire abatement 84-14-13-040185. Award contract 2022-126 OWEF, which is Unit 3 ash discharger install. And E, accept adopt a family program donations.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call. We'll start with Ken.
Aye. Oh boy.
Stephanie.
Aye.
Matt.
Aye.
Greg.
I'll sleep tonight.
Hey, says aye and I say aye. Passes. Okay. Next up, discussion decision items. Authorize issuance and award sale of general obligation bonds series 2022B, funding the county's 2022 capital improvement plan projects.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm standing in for Wilfredo on his much-needed vacation.
Finally referred to as money bags.
Yes.
Okay.
We're here today to award the sale of the General Obligation 2022B bond series. It's about $19.9 million, and it's funding $3 million funds some solid waste projects, and the rest of it is things that were approved in our capital improvement program. And you adopted that in December. We do have Tammy Amdahl, who's one of our trusted advisors with Northland, on the line to give you some of the details of the sale.
Okay, Tammy.
Good afternoon. Tammy Umdahl from Northland Securities. The county did very well. I'll start with saying that in what is a moving market, moving away from you, rates have been rising. Cami went over the purpose of the bonds. The final par amount will be $18,905,000, which was less than the plan $19,915,000, and that has to do with the final winning bid with premium. But before I get in the results, I also want to note that we had recommended that the city seek a rating on these bonds. The city had outstanding rating from Moody's and S&P Global. Both Moody's and S&P affirmed the AAA rating. I would just note for the board and for the viewing public, with respect to that very strong rating, Moody's and S&P both speak to the very strong economy of Olmsted, extremely high reserves, which are very credit positive, as well as very strong overall debt profile, among other factors. So very positive credit reports for the county from both Moody's and S&P. With respect to the results, there were 7 bids received. Low bid was from Piper Sandler out of Minneapolis. The final true interest cost, which is the rate that we use to evaluate the 7 bids, was 2.32. I would note with the market moving up, that is about a half a base or 50 basis points or 0.5% above what had been estimated in December. So the final par amount that's for consideration by the board is $18,905,000. And again, that reflects the fact that the county did receive a premium bid. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
All right, any questions?
So I'm not sure what you mean when you say premium bid. There's 19,915, and then next to Piper is 21,182. I lost a little bit there. I should know this stuff, but
No worries. So let me explain further, Mr. Chair, Commissioner. So when underwriters, investment banks bid in this current rate environment, because still, relatively speaking, rates are low. So investors demand what are the coupons, the rates on each of those bonds. So in effect, Piper is paying more than the face value of the bonds, which we call premium, to the amount of about $1.2 million. It's not free money to the county. It simply means that the county will pay less in principal than what was estimated and more in interest because the bonds will carry higher coupon. The net effect is still the same, meaning that 2.3 overall true interest cost. And premium bids have been very common, including in recent sales for the county, again, because of the market that we have been in for quite a few years now.
Okay, thanks. I move approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Second. All right, we'll do a roll call. Matt. Aye.
Aye.
Stephanie.
Aye.
Greg. He says aye. I say aye. Passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, adopt updated Olmsted County Roadway Safety Plan. Who is handling this?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's Nick Sanford,
Nick.
traffic engineer with Public Works. I might share my screen here and provide a little presentation that I have.
Great, we see it?
Okay. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about the Olmsted County Roadway Safety Plan that was fairly recently completed. Just kind of a small update on what it is and how we can use it moving forward. So a little bit of background. It was prepared as part of the County Road Safety Plan update process in conjunction with MnDOT and a consultant team. It was the second round of safety plans that we were involved in. The first round was in 2009, and this safety plan will replace that existing safety plan. It aligns with the state strategic highway safety plan, which has the goal to reduce fatal and severe crashes on the county roadway system, and it utilizes a data-driven, systematic, and proactive approach. It also supports the state's TZD program. What's included in the plan is a description of safety focus areas, identification of a list of high priority, low cost strategies, the development of $16 million in recommended safety projects. The projects are actual applications for HSIP funding, which is the Highway Safety Improvement Program. It provides candidate locations for those funds, and it's basically a tool to easily allow us to apply for this safety funding. So the types of roadway locations that were analyzed in the plan include rural segments, rural curves, rural intersections, urban segments, urban intersections, which are vehicle related, and urban intersections with pedestrian and bike related safety factors. This next slide just shows a what a map that is included within the plan, kind of a location-based map that shows different projects on our roadway that are recommended. Next slide is kind of hard to see. It's got a lot of data in it, but this is just a list of what projects are recommended. An example of lists of projects that are recommended in the safety plan. And this next slide just shows an example of the HSIP submission form that's included in the safety plan. So it's, like I said before, it's basically just a tool to allow us to apply for these HSIP funding dollars. And the plan provides basically an application for the dollars that are provided.
Okay, none of those are funded at this point, correct? If I remember right.
Correct. None of them are funded at this point. They're for future projects, low cost, high impact projects throughout our system.
Yeah.
But we have the opportunity to apply for this HSIP funding each year. We actually applied this last year. The funding solicitation comes out in November of each year. We applied for 3 different projects. We received funding for 2 projects. One was centerline rumble strips on locations throughout the county, and another one was turn lane, the addition of turn lanes at 2 different intersections in the county. We actually were involved with another application that was in our safety plan. MnDOT applied for a roundabout at the intersection of Trunk Highway 63 and County Road 112, which is 75th Street and 18th Avenue Northwest for a
Really?
roundabout.
Oh.
Actually got funding for that as well for
Yeah.
2026.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
Do you have any idea how big a pot of money supports the HSIP program? Anybody? It's not real important, but
yeah, I think it's about, statewide, it's, a couple $1 million per year. I'm not sure the exact figure, but, and they divvy it out in each district. So our district is all allocated so much per year.
not a lot of
It
money.
depends on the year. For 2023, I think they had like $500,000 to award projects. But it can be up to a couple million for our
Okay.
district.
Great.
And that was what I had, unless there's any other questions.
Okay. Any questions? Well, thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving right
Commissioner,
along.
we do have a resolution with that one, I believe.
We have a resolution?
Yes,
I think we,
Okay, we have a resolution. I need a motion. All right, we got a motion? Can I get a second? Okay, I'm sorry, Stephanie, didn't hear you. All right, we'll do a roll call. Matt?
Aye.
Greg? He says aye. Ken?
aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
And I say aye. Passes. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Next up, I think we're up to COVID update.
Yes,
Michael?
Chairman Tyne and Commissioners, good afternoon. My name is Mike Mielis. I'm an Associate Director of Olmsted County Public Health, and we'll be providing a COVID update. I have some slides that I'll share.
Okay.
And then I would like to also introduce Megan Sheridan, Program Manager, who oversees our epi surveillance and preparedness. And frankly, Megan represents a really important capacity in terms of epidemiology. You're going to see quite a bit of that here in just a moment.
Great.
Megan?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And good afternoon, commissioners. So we'll just kind of start off with how we've always started off with our update of looking at the United States and Minnesota, and then kind of get down to more to our local level. So it's not often I get to come with exciting news, so I'm going to relish in this a little bit here of that. And for the state of Minnesota, the United States, and here in Olmsted County, we are seeing a decrease in COVID cases. So for the United States, we've declined around 75% since the peak in mid-January. They're still relatively high considering our other peaks. The same goes here for Minnesota too. You can see that our line isn't as clean as the United States is, but you can see that we're dropping. We also are starting to see our percent positivity in Minnesota drop and our hospitalizations in ICU. So if we go to the next slide, Mike. We'll start off by looking at where our testing numbers are. And so I know when we've come and talked to you all before, we know that at-home testing does have an impact on what we're seeing with our percent positivity and the number of tests we're seeing here in Olmsted County. However, what has been interesting to watch is that our testing numbers and our percent positivity are following very similar to our cases that are being reported. So at least we're getting some consistency between those two measures. So you can see our testing has decreased pretty significantly over the last few weeks, of now just hovering around a little more than 4,000 cases or tests, compared to where we were a few weeks ago when we were around 1,300. You can also see our percent positivity is starting to take a little bit of a dip too, which is great to see. And it's the first time we're under 20% positivity in a month. All right, Mike, if you could go to the next slide. Thank you. So I know this is hard to see, and I've shared this before. This is from the New York Times. And again, it's just a different visual to kind of to be able to see the impact of our average cases per capita. So we are still in that deep purple color, even though we've started to see some declines and starting to see cases similar to what we saw back in November. So if we look at more at our epi curve on the next slide, we'll give you some updated accounts of where we're at. So you have the visual of our epi curve, but then you also have the table for our graph too. And you can see here that we're basically decreasing by around 40% each week, which is great to see. I mean, I wish it was like our 200% decrease, like we saw a 200% increase, but I'll take 40% week over week as well. So you can see we're starting to see those case numbers come down. And we're starting to feel more confident that we are getting still an accurate picture of where our cases are. So just to call out of where we have been for the last few weeks, we were at 120 for the week of the 23rd of January, we were around 1,400. That dropped down to 850 on the week of the 30th. And for this past week, which we're fairly confident, it may go up a little bit, but we'll probably be right around 600 for the week of the 6th. So starting to see some really positive movement with our cases. If we go to the next graph, this is just going to be looking at our hospitalizations. And unfortunately, we haven't seen the shift in our hospitalizations as dramatically as what we've been seeing with our cases. In fact, the past week, our hospitalization numbers ticked up a little bit. We're anticipating to see a decrease over the next this week, even just talking with our hospital partners. The decrease we saw with our ICUs were actually due to people passing away in the hospital. So as we know with COVID, we'll see our increase of cases, and then we'll see the increase in hospitalizations, and then we'll start to see the wave of deaths. And that's where we are truly right now. For the month of February so far, we have had 8 people pass away due to COVID. And the majority of those have been in the hospital and in the ICU. So we're starting to see some positive trends, and we're hoping to continue to see that decrease, and it more so due to the people getting out of the hospital and not dying of COVID. We go to the next slide. So the CDC is putting together a forecaster for each county in the United States. The issue with this is they only update it once a week, and they update it tomorrow. So this is kind of looking at what they were predicting for us for looking at last week's data. And we're already starting to hit right around that 500, about a week or two faster than what this model is projecting. So that's some positive news, but just means that we're going to have to continue to monitor this. But again, we're really starting to hopefully see some positive indications of that downturn of cases here in Olmsted County. So if we want to just look quickly at where we are with vaccine at the next slide, Mike. You can see here we're still getting people vaccinated, but it's at a very smaller and slower pace than what we have seen. So currently, right now, we have around 53% of our 5 to 11-year-olds have received at least one dose, with 47% of those completing their series. You can see too, we're at 82% of our entire population of Olmsted County has received at least one COVID vaccine. And right now we're around 67% of those eligible to receive an additional dose or booster have done so. And just to kind of speak to the importance of vaccine, the last graphs are from the Minnesota Department of Health. And again, this is really just to call out, we do see a huge benefit and protective factor of vaccines. And again, this is just calling out not fully vaccinated versus fully vaccinated. We know that even with boosters, that becomes even more of a protective factor. And we know that the CDC is coming out almost every week now with new adjustments of looking at that. And it still sees that vaccine efficacy against Omicron is preventing those emergency department visits, those severe illnesses, hospitalizations, and deaths. So Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk and wrap us up around some of our current efforts.
All right. Thank you, Megan. So as we've been watching the cases decline, not related, but we've also seen kind of a scaling back in vaccine demand. And so we're scaling back our vaccine clinics also. In fact, the vaccine teams have been very good about, frankly, adjusting to vaccine clinics as the registrations have come in, people registering to be vaccinated. So they've been very flexible about that. We will, at some point, and I'll talk a little bit about demobilization, but we will at some point have a lot of that vaccination effort move back into our DPC, our Disease Prevention and Control Unit, who has traditionally been providing childhood routine immunizations. And so we can make that, or we plan to transition it back in and make it part of our regular providing a vaccine to the community. We do expect to see the next age group of, I guess it'd be children, eligible for vaccine, but that approval was delayed. However, we do see a majority of that, when it is approved, a majority of that population being vaccinated by the providers. Just the age group, incorporating the healthcare provider with the parents. So that's what we're expecting. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is the things that we will continue doing is supporting education around COVID prevention, vaccination, and making sure that at least there's, with our partners, information out there and whatever changes there might occur. It seems like even last Friday we have papers that come out, and then regarding vaccine effectiveness in terms of boosters, and then at the same time CDC provides information about truly that the effectiveness is there for 4 or more months. So for the booster, in fact. So there is a lot of information that we expect to continue to emerge, and we'll continue kind of processing that and making sure that we can get that to the community and our partners. And then finally on demobilization, it's important, I think, to know that throughout the last few months, public health has been trying to make sure we certainly have the response as a priority, but as demand starts to come down in terms of resources for our staff, managers and staff have been looking at what routine and traditional work we can be doing. So they have been doing that as they can. I mean, I just spoke with manager today, and the staff are excited and they want to. They're energized about getting back to routine work. And frankly, we've gone a long time with making COVID response a priority and all the things that went into that. And unfortunately, a lot of our regular prevention work was put on hold in many ways, with the exception of a few bright spots like WIC, who has really continued to serve clients and see an increase in the number of clients. But beyond that, we have units that are looking now to basically transition into some regular work. But we want to be very careful about that. We had a moment in time last summer when cases came down. We began demobilizing, and then that's when the fall surge of Delta started to come on very strong, and we had to remobilize. And so we're going to be very cautious and mindful about how we go about that. But knowing that we do see a bright spot, maybe a light at the end of the tunnel. Megan can maybe speak to this better, but we're hoping to see much better numbers mid-March and transition to possibly a phase of like what would be considered an endemic. When things stabilize, we can have much more consistent view of COVID cases and hospitalizations. So with that, I'll certainly stop sharing my screen and see if you have any questions.
Michael, I have a question not directly related to your report, but I've been a little confused when I see the information about vaccinating the 5-year-olds. They were ready to go with 2 vaccines, and then said, well, we don't know if they're going to need a 3rd, so we're going to hold off. I read that and I think, what is the problem with just starting with the first 2? And then coming to some decision later whether you need the 3. What am I not understanding about that decision? Do you know?
Well, I can speak to this, a couple of things. They're being very careful. They want to know exactly what the outcomes, is it safe? Yes, they know that. But they're also looking at the effectiveness. And within that small age range that kind of those young children, there's a differentiation between the very young in the group and the more, a few more years of age. And there was some differentiation in terms of effectiveness. And I think they need to study that a little more so they truly understand those really young children and gaining immunity that parents will expect when those vaccines are given.
So would they adjust would they adjust what the first and second doses contain?
Well, that's out of my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay. I'm just.
Yeah, we have to. I know what they're doing is watching the data. They're looking at the trial and the studies of how children are responding, their immunity, that kind of thing. And frankly, I think that's a really good sign, and has followed what vaccine producers and the FDA and HSIP have been doing all along, which is making sure that they know exactly, based on actual trials and studies, how immunity will be gained, that they're safe, and I frankly I wouldn't have it any other way. So it's a very very careful approach.
Thank you.
Well, I think our next meeting is in March, and if we keep dropping 40% a week, I think we'll be at about 250 cases in the community. If we keep that up, that would be nice.
I put a star in my calendar where Megan said March 12th.
I think we were assured by March 12th this would be done. So.
No, Megan was wrong.
Megan was wrong.
Well, she's still got a chance.
We don't know if
she might come ahead of the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have confidence that she can pull this off.
It's all on Megan. And Chairman Tyne, I would add by saying that anytime you have the cases drop, in a kind of a traditional curve like that, an epi curve, you always have that little bit that tails off and becomes extremely frustrating, and basically is another example of how this pandemic has been frustrating. And so I'm hopeful we'll see that mid-March. I'm expecting it, but really want to see it happen.
Sure. All right. Well, thank you, Mike and Megan, for your report. Appreciate it.
She gets credit if it's early.
Oh, yeah.
Before March 12th. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We're going to support we're going to have a party if she's invited.
All right.
So,
Tyne.
Okay.
Chairman Tyne.
Yes.
It's Travis back here.
Oh, there you are, Travis.
Hey. Just one other thing I wanted to mention around this is that when Denise and Mike and I were chatting a little bit this morning too, it would be our intent not to have a COVID update at the next board meeting, but to bring one on the March 15th board meeting. Unless anything significantly changes in one direction or another between now and March 1st, I just think that would set us up then to talk, especially if the numbers that are projected continue to kind of go at pace. Then on March 15th, we can talk about kind of what is next.
It'll be our last COVID report.
Don't jinx us, huh?
So if things are really good, then we could have a mask burning celebration.
Yes.
So with your permission, I mean, that's our plan then, is just to come back on the 15th of March and hopefully talk about what lies ahead.
Okay, yeah, that works. Thank you. Okay, before we move on to board and committee reports, we need a vote on our volunteer applicants.
Oh, sure.
Move to appoint three, right?
Three. Here's a list.
Aaron and Anthony.
Yeah, I'd recommend that we let them know that. Okay. I'd move approval to appoint them to their respective commissions.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, roll call. Let's start with Greg. Okay, that's an aye. Matt?
Aye.
Aye.
Stephanie?
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you for your applications. All right, board and committee reports. We'll shake it up, go with Ken first.
a couple of things. Micah last week is always interesting. Talk about where they're at legislation-wise, how quickly they're moving. They believe it will be a fairly significant bond, both debt and cash, to be used, and there's a lot of debate going on relative to more money into programming, which is one-time money. It's not always a good idea, so there's push and pull on that. And that was just a quick discussion. Said, are they going to finish early since they got all this money and it's so easy to spend? And Steve Novak, who is the transportation guy, said May 21st or 22nd or whatever it is. So he said, but there will not be a special session. They will finish where they're legislatively tied to finish. Emergency Communications Board yesterday had our annual meeting with the radio guys as well, and talking about some major things, the encryption in the radios, new radios, equipment, and funding at the state appears to be coming along to support that, significant funding to support the upgrade of the technology. Other than that, that was it.
Okay, thank you. Stephanie?
Just to let you know, I believe tomorrow night we'll find out who the new director of the library will be. I recused myself from that vote because I'm friends with two of the applicants, so I don't know how it's turned out yet, but we'll find out tomorrow, I think.
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Matt?
I have nothing more.
Okay, Greg? Oh, you're still on mute, Greg.
Can't hear you, Greg.
He's working on it. You have a master muted?
Yeah,
There we are.
okay, here we go, thank you. Sheila Kiskadinen and I attended a workshop on tribal relationships, which was very good, well received by all the other county commissioners who were there, and it was very well attended. So I would say that over half the counties were in attendance. So I think it was a great deal of interest. As part of the history of the relations with the tribes in Minnesota, a lot of court cases were reviewed and Supreme Court judgments were reviewed to give us an understanding of the difficulties that the tribal folks have had over many years. I think it's very interesting to note that it may affect Olmsted County as the Prairie Island Group moves into the Pine Island area, because it has to do with law enforcement, it has to do with social services, and it has to do with really how we have a relationship, because what we're really dealing with is international relations, because all tribes are sovereign nations. And so we have to approach them as a sovereign nation, not a minority group. And they will be very clear to tell us that they are a sovereign nation and not just a separate group of people. And I think that it would do us well to continue our very good relations that we've already have with the Prairie Island Group, and at some point sit down and have an informal chat with them. In addition to that, I attended the Tri-Government, which is getting off the ground, and we'll see what kinds of projects that will work on. Commissioner Tyne was also a part of that, and I also attended the MICA board meeting along with Ken, and I did send any notes that I took for you to review. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Greg. I got a couple things. I had my first DMC meeting a few weeks ago and had some couple takeaways. One is there seems to be a more emphasis on improving the ride experience, which includes better stations, which will increase the cost of the project, but it's seen as an important way to go. And then probably bigger and more affecting us is that they're going to move. DMC is going to move forward with changing the route of the south, or what they call the east end, and that may and likely will mean that we won't have a station here at the government center, but we'll instead have a full transit village, probably where Fullerton is eventually, so that route will change. Won't go here on 4th Street at all, won't go on Broadway at all, go down 3rd, head up on the new 6th, come through the new transit village station, go back down 5th, back to 3rd and go back. And so that's a big change for us, and that's also a big expensive change, and will likely push the project back a year.
I saw that, Mark. My question, if they go to Fullerton, they're only 4 blocks away from the Seneca. Why not go to Seneca?
I don't know.
What did the DMC board say? Just don't care?
Well, no, we didn't bring up Seneca at all during the conversation during the board meeting. I don't know. I think their answer would be that they're concerned with the amount of time it takes that train to complete its route, and whether that 4 blocks means 8 blocks, which is a mile additional, whether it's worthwhile.
But that was ridiculous. You're 4 blocks away from a parcel where we're going to sell them for cost, and they just ignore us.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Does the DMC even talk about that?
No, there was no talk of Seneca property during the meeting.
Okay.
So the decision is not made yet. Basically, the decision was to move forward with studying it. It seems foregone that it's going to head up that direction. That, now that this property has gone for sale, that a transit village or transit-oriented development will take place there. And
So-
if it will serve neighborhoods better too.
Yeah.
this-
Was there talk about the 6th Street Bridge that may affect that decision?
Well, in their drawings, they show the 6th Street Bridge, so if there was no 6th Street Bridge, I would say that they would not do that move, so I think they're making the assumption that a 6th Street Bridge will happen.
Which will be multi-millions.
Yeah,
Where?
yep,
We know.
That's non-trivial getting across.
And they're saying this is again, it makes no economic sense, reasoning to me at all.
Right.
I just can't believe it. We're 4 blocks away with a group that we had lined up, and they pulled this one.
Yeah.
I won't go there, but,
Well, obviously it isn't going there.
yeah, it's not going there, and I won't go there on whether it makes sense or not, but, I mean, I understand the logic. Now that this property is all gonna be developed, and they got a long-range plan there, and there's gonna be a lot of housing, and then they show the circles that if they have a station there, that how many homes will be within walking distance of that existing homes.
It would have been the same one, whatever.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of homes down there, but by the belt line too, that would have been available if they would have gone to the Seneca property, but that doesn't seem to be in the cards. Who knows, maybe in a year there'll be another change and another study to do that.
Well, that's the thing. The problem is we've had up-teen studies and nothing's happened.
Yeah.
And their wish list is the feds are gonna pay for all this after
That was interesting too. So
up-teen years.
Right.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but the total increase of the project was approximately $30 million, and their numbers indicated that they were thinking, being DMC, was thinking that the feds would take care of all of that as compared to, I don't know, that might be wishful thinking. So,
Really?
um,
Wow.
so that's my report for DMC. That was an interesting start. The other thing I have to add is that there's an online open house tonight from 6 to 7:30 regarding the new roundabout near Century High School. So if you have interest in that, you can go on the Olmsted County website and find a link to join in and learn about it, and maybe give some comments about it. So I encourage you to do that. So I have a short quote before we adjourn, and this one's from John Steinbeck. It says, what good is the warmth of summer without the cold of winter to give it sweetness? All right, so I'll need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.